thanks for your service. And Mr. Secretary, you and I have been good friends for a long time, and I'm, again, very proud of your service and your continuing commitment to our military services, in this case, particularly the United States Army. My state continues to be at the forefront of both the war in Afghanistan, the conflict in Iraq. The 48th Brigade of the Georgia National Guard is in the process of returning home right now after another very successful engagement, this time in Afghanistan. Of course, the 3rd ID is on their 4th tour in Iraq now, and again, just doing a terrific job. We're very proud of those folks. General Casey, you referenced in your budget that, in your statement, that this budget includes all the remaining funding to complete the round of BRAC. While the Taliban can't stop the United States Army in Afghanistan, it appears that the red-headed cockaded woodpecker in Georgia has at least slowed down the transfer of the armor school. Can you give us an update on that, and does your budget reflect the fact that we're going to complete that in the short term?
The budget reflects the fact that we're going to complete the construction. Frankly, I'm not up to speed on where we are with the red cockaded woodpecker, Mr. I don't know if you have that either. I'll find out and let you know. I'm sorry. I was down at Benning probably 2 months ago, and they told me that they were on track. They mentioned some problems, but they didn't think those were going to keep us from meeting that September 2011 date to have the Armor Center down there.
Okay. Well, if you could just give us a follow-up on that in writing, or have your staff give me a call, it'd be fine. Mr. Secretary, we previously discussed the issue of Fort Stewart and the Army's decision not to grow the additional 3 BCTs as previously stated, and with that in mind, the QDR mentions 2 pending reviews of our 4 European-based BCTs. As you well know, we eagerly await the outcome of those reviews and hope that the Army will give a hard look at where those BCTs should be based, and keep in mind both your commitments to NATO allies as well as the need to have troops based in the continental United States. Now, in that regard, the FY10 Defense Appropriation Bill called for a review to be completed within 60 days of enactment of the Department's efforts to mitigate the impact of the brigade basing decisions that I mentioned above on local communities. Can you give us the status of that since we are at the 60-day mark?
The one thing I've learned, Senator, since my 5 months in the Pentagon is that 60 days usually means 75. I've not yet seen that report. I promise you we will attempt to find out where it is for you and provide that information with you. For you, I should say. As to the rebasing, we expect the NATO review and the attendant U.S. posture reviews as to the 4 brigade teams in the European theater to be concluded, and hopefully a decision can be made whether they'll be retained in Europe or perhaps one or both be brought back home by fall of this year.
Okay. With respect to the reset and replacement of the equipment that we are using or have used in Iraq over the last several years, it's pretty obvious when you're on the ground over there that a lot of this equipment is just simply worn out. And if we're truly going to leave the Iraqis in a position to be able to maintain security both internally and also threats from external sources, we're probably going to have to leave some equipment with them. What's the plan of the Army now with respect to how much of this equipment is truly going to be brought back to the United States to be reset, how much is going to be left there for the Iraqis, and how much is simply too worn out to do either of the above?
Yeah, Senator, a great question. In fact, we have been working on the drawdown in Iraq for over 18 months and putting in place the stewardship boards to ensure that we have a good handle on this. And as you suggest, just to give you an idea of the scope of this, is about 3 million pieces of equipment. in Iraq, and as you say, in various states of repair. About 70% of that equipment is Army standard, belongs to Army units, and that will come back to the United States, get reset, and get put back into units. The remaining 30% is non-standard equipment. About 95% of that will be retained for our future use. It's things like X-ray machines that we use at entry sites, and about 5% will be made available to state agencies for emergency use. Right now, it looks like we will leave about $500 million worth of excess equipment to the Iraqis, and that includes trucks, Humvees, rifles, generators, those kinds of things, and that's all part of that. Part of that has been provided by the authorities that came from this committee. But out of all the billions of dollars, it's only about $500 million will be used, will be left there for the Iraqis.
Okay. I think Senator McCain touched on the issue of the 22,000 personnel that we've plussed up and whether or not we ought to make those permanent. But without repeating the specific question that he asked, I hope I'm not. General Casey, what are your thoughts on making the current temporary increase of end strength at 22,000?
Senator, because of the cost of personnel and the impact of that on the rest of the programs within the budget, I want to look at it very closely. And as I mentioned to Senator Lieberman, if we meet the drawdown in Iraq targets about as they've been laid out, we may not need the entire 22,000, and we may not need to keep it. But it's something we'll look very, very closely at here, probably over the next 6 months.
Yeah, well, I would fully expect this committee is going to support your decision, whatever it may be, but the one issue that I keep hearing back home as I visit Army posts is this op-tempo issue, and it primarily comes from spouses, the same as what you already know, I'm sure, but trying to deal with that issue is not easy, but obviously one way to do it is to make these 22,000 permanent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Chambliss. Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for your service.